This is the Landlord Survival Show. When people stop being nice and shit gets real. You're the landlord. We're here to help. This is a show for what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. We're here for you because we're stronger together.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors.
This is our episode of the Landlord Survival Show. I have done these shows for the last year, but I've never done them live. We used to do a lot of live shows before, kind of got away from that. Now we're going back to the live shows. And so the reason Pete and I created the Landlord Survival Show and the whole concept is that we get a lot of investors that we know buy a lot of properties, and we get a lot of people that understand kind of getting the deal. But, you know, Pete and I were very similar in the sense that when we bought these deals, when we bought these properties, no one ever showed us how to actually manage the properties day after day, year after year. And, you know, it's one of those things that I realize there's a lot of people out there that are we'll call them the gurus, that show you how to buy deals. They show you all the fast, sexy money. But what they don't do is they don't show you how to get the money all the time for the goal, because we buy these things for goals. We want return. We want this. We want that. So Pete and I created the Landlord Survival Facebook group. So if you go on Facebook, Landlord Survival Group, and that is for investors. Pete and I are investors. We buy properties. We are still in the heat of battle. Even though we own a management company, we're still doing this. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is that a lot of people, they don't have the structure. They buy a house, they do it as a hobby, and they kind of get beat up because they hear all these great stories of people like Tarl and Grace who are just killing it in the world. They're slamming deals. They're making a couple mil a year, and they never get touched and they never get skinned. But the reality is people like Tarl and Grace, just like people like me, have gotten their knees skinned. We've gotten punched in the face. We've had problems before. And so we created this show, and we created the website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, to address those issues. And we created a manual, and the manual is the Ultimate Landlord Survival Handbook. And what that manual is how we manage our properties every day at Empire for the average investor. You know, because the average investor doesn't know what is on the dangerous breed list. They don't understand discrimination laws when screening tenants, what they can ask, can't ask. Even what's good for a make ready, right? Do I do it like my house that I live in, or do I do it to where it's rentable? What do you do? And so these are things that you don't deal with on a daily basis, so you don't understand how you should handle it. So we wanted this show basically to be able to have investors on the show talk about when they get their knees scraped, how they battle it out every single day. And so I've got my good friends Tarl and Grace on today. Guys, thanks for being here. Appreciate your time.
But yeah, thanks for having us, and excited to be here and talk about landlord surviving.
Yeah.
Thanks. Stephen, you have given a lot of advice and lessons from your years of in the business. I always enjoy talking to you and bouncing ideas, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you later this month as well.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the event. We're going to talk about what you guys are doing. Did I fix it, Tarl?
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
Awesome.
We look like a genius.
There we go. Like we know what we're doing, right?
Yep.
So first, let's talk about how we met. It was a pretty interesting story that, some people talk about coincidences. I'm not sure I believe in those. I think things happen for a reason. And the way it happened for me was we both have a mutual friend. His name is Marshall Silver. And we were both coached and trained by Marshall. And, you know, Marshall that's a whole other conversation of itself. Just an amazing guy. I mean, just an awesome individual. Marshall, I was with him one day and he says, you need to meet my buddy Tarl. And I'm thinking, how did you say that again? Was it Carl?
Carl with a T.
Carl. He's like, with a T. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, he's up in Seattle. He's really killing it in real estate. You should talk to him. I'm like, absolutely. I'll talk to anyone. So it was probably 3 weeks later, and I'm a guest on a radio station in Seattle. And so Nick Neal, I was on his show. And so he has me on as a guest, and we're talking about Houston real estate and what's going on. And there's a guy on there named Tarl. And I'm thinking to myself, what are the odds that two people in the world have this name?
What a weirdo, right?
Right? And so we start talking, and I think on the show, I think we actually put it together that we were both friends with Marshall. Is that right?
I don't remember. So that was so many years ago.
Well, and then we were at his house in Carlsbad, and that's where we actually met.
That's when we finally, like when we were at his house in Carlsbad, San Diego area, when you and I are like, we were on a radio show together, and
yes.
And then we made out, and we've been.
Well, it didn't go that far, but yes, we watched you and Grace make out.
Oh, that's good.
All right, so tell everyone kind of what you guys do and kind of what your story is, because you guys got a great, unique story, and the fact that you don't even really like doing this, Tarl, is what I think is even more important.
Well, which part? Being on Facebook Live or real estate? No.
Not the Facebook Live. That's mastered. We're masters at that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So no, we started out in real estate years ago, but my story is a little bit longer. But it's started when I was 20 years old and went to a seminar. I actually went to a Marshall Silver seminar, but buying Marshall Silver seminar I needed to afford it, so I went and bought another seminar called "How to Turn $10 into $10,000 in 30 Days or Less," and that was about wholesaling real estate. And I used that seminar to help pay for Marshall Silver seminar back when I was 20 years old, 14 years ago.
Risk taker.
Yeah. So fast forward to today, we went really hardcore real estate back in 2011. And between 2011 and now, I've been involved in well over 600 real estate, single family real estate transactions and stuff for investing purposes. Most of them we purchased in a company or something that we had. And then since 2014, we started Fixated Real Estate here in the Seattle area. And we've done 45 million in single family fix and flip just in the Seattle area since 2015. So over the last 3.5, 4 years. And now we focus on buy and hold investments. For the most part, we try to keep all these things as much as possible because we made a lot of mistakes by selling everything over the years. And because we thought it was awesome to make 30 grand, 60 grand, 80 grand on a flip. And then we look back and we go, oh, that house we sold for $360 in 2015 is worth $800,000 in Seattle now. So that sucks. But for all that. But then, throughout all of it, Grace got involved in 2017 when she quit her job and started going full-time with us. And she runs all our property management now and also helps kick ass on the event business that we also run. And we love working together every single day.
Yeah, so I got to say, it's awesome how you and Grace are always doing stuff together. I got to say, it's very, very cool. You guys should be very proud because I would imagine, this industry would be very tough for spouses to deal with because, you're dealing with contractors, time limits, stress. We all know shit breaks and things don't happen the way they should. And you guys are able to deal with that and at least smile in front of the camera when you take a picture.
Everything is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this. Was one of the reasons you guys changed from the flipping model to the buy and hold, is that because of the market changing, or are you just kind of going, I'm making a lot of people wealthy and I would like to keep some of that for myself?
It was more of we were still focused on, I was too myopic on one thing, and that was I fix and flip, I fix and flip. And then, Grace and I were looking at it more and more, and we go we're not really building true wealth just flipping. We're sure our P&L and our income is super high, but at the same time, our asset level besides cash is just not really doing much. And so that was one of the triggers where you go well, why don't we start keeping some of these? And we just kind of not accidentally, we just said, oh, we'll keep this one, oh, we'll keep that one. And then we started seeing what the power of actual building a real estate portfolio actually can do for you over time. And we're like, man, we've been children in this business for so long, not even realizing what opportunities are really out there for real estate investing, even though we've done tens of millions of dollars in real estate, and if not hundreds by now. But we just wanted to be grown-ups. We wanted to actually have a real estate portfolio and see what it's actually like. And now it's a hardcore focus of ours to build wealth through that way, and then allow for passivity and have better, asset, pool and everything. Right. So
I think it's looking more also long-term investments versus we want to be actively grinding in a fix and flip versus be okay, we want to change our lifestyle to be able to have a lifestyle where just passively while we sleep, we receive cash flow. So that translated to okay, we need to keep as much as we can. Anything we buy, we keep,
Yep.
And what's interesting is I think that's a common evolution for a lot of people because, you're kind of running on the treadmill, right? And I remember when I was getting involved in investing, I was doing wholesaling and, double closes and options and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to own something. And when I met Pete, he was owning apartment complexes. And I was like, I want to do what you do. I want to own properties. And what's funny is that some of it's the grass is greener theory, because he looked at me and said, I want to do what you're doing. I want to make $20,000 every time you wholesale a property. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a job. I'm like, if I stop, so does the money.
Yeah.
And so it's just a different perspective. But I agree. I mean, it may be a combination thereof at some point. Maybe it's an 80-20. You keep what's good, you hang on, and you flip what you don't want to support making another acquisition, whatever that formula is.
Oh, yeah. And we're looking at stuff that we own now that we bought 2 years ago that we're like, thank goodness we kept it. And because, there's hundreds of thousands. I mean, we're in a different market than some of the areas, but like, our market's really gone gangbusters here over the years in the Seattle, Puget Sound area. And just to be able to have, like, we have a duplex that I like to brag about that we owe $200,000 on, and it's worth $450 right now. And it cash flows it rents for $2,900 a month, and our principal, taxes, and insurance is $1,200. And it's like, we'd be done. And looking back, we would have been so dumb to sell that thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so let me ask you this, like, there's a mental shift, right? Because there's I don't want to say greed factor, but there's that factor that comes in, right? When you're looking at this deal going, man, we could make a couple hundred on this, or we can make $100,000, or we can make 500 a month, 1,000 a month, whatever that is.
Yeah.
How did you guys go through that? Because I think that's something a lot of people go through all the time, where they want to do it, but you build up a certain lifestyle, right? If you do this deal and you flip it, you can pay off a lot of bills, you can pay off the crew, you can do this, you can do that. How do you guys go through that mental shift to now be all in for the rentals?
Part of it had a lot to do with the taxes, to be honest with you. So taxes is a big part of it. And when you fix and flip a home, it doesn't matter even if you technically owned it for more than 12 months, you're still paying ordinary income tax on that fix and flip. I'm not a CPA. There's plenty of ways to kind of navigate some of that stuff, but for the most part, you're paying ordinary income tax. And for us, we wanted to limit that. And so it gets to a point we were running a pretty good business where we actually had, but we also had a huge chunk of overhead running that business. Operational costs kind of came in. So there would be times where we had to flip a house in order to keep, feed the machine kind of a thing, right? Yeah. And that's and I didn't like that feeling going this is a great house to keep, but hey, we get 70, 80 grand out of it right now, and that's going to feed the machine for a while longer. So let's keep it going. And it I didn't like that feeling. So on one side, taxes is a big portion of it. And just as an example, we had a house a couple of months ago where we had the option to sell it, and we would have made about $121,000 if we sold it as a fix and flip. But it only cash flowed $190 a month, right? If we kept it as a rental. That's a kind of most people you look at it go oh, $200 a month cash flow or $120,000 profit right now. Which one do you want? $2,400 a year or $120,000, right? So that was a really tough call to keep, because in reality, if we would have sold that one, we kept it, right? And our entire purpose for keeping that one is just to have it leased out for more than 12 months or own it for more than 12 months. And then when it's done, we'll sell it, because then it just drops our complete tax basis down, or not basis, but our tax bracket down, just by keeping it longer. And
short-term rental, yeah.
Yeah, and we save, we'll save 15-20% in taxes just doing that, versus would have just sold it. So why not?
Well, and I think what a lot of people, the mistake I think a lot of investors make, especially when they're used to, hanging their hat on the cash flow word, is, they don't take into account, let's say you guys hold this for 30 years, right? And you pass it down to your children in a legacy, and you put it in a trust. Every year that property, is going to go up in value. You got appreciation. When the property goes up in value, rents are going to go up in value, right? So if you looked at a house that, me growing up in Los Angeles, you're up there in Seattle, I think of back when I was a kid growing up, what houses cost then to what they cost today and what they rent for today, just in LA or any city, USA. You sit there and look at what you're making. It's not what you'd be making today, because you're making a decision of what the cash flow is today based on a future goal. So in the future, let's say it's worth $1.5 million. Well, it's going to rent for a lot more than what it's renting for now. And all your other costs, I get your taxes are not fixed, and I'm sure your insurance is not fixed, but in general, those are fixed. And if you have a mortgage, that's fixed. But the rent goes up, you have a tenant doing the debt pay down, tenant's paying that down. So you have an asset that you put something down on that someone else is paying off for you in 30 years when you actually want it. And when I talk to a lot of people, and I'll talk about this when I'm up at your event in Seattle, is a lot of people make a decision today based on what the goal is when they actually want the deal. So it's like, you got to plant that seed and you go, well, that sucks because I can't put my treehouse on the seed. It's like, well, you got to give it some time to grow. So what you guys are doing is you guys are planting all these seeds, and all of a sudden, you know, yeah, you could have made out with 120 grand, but maybe you'll make out more with 800, 900 grand when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely a big shift to think in the future, especially coming from fix and flip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you're huge in the fix and flip world. You've got your groups, you've got your websites, you got all this. Do you start shifting how you think, and maybe even not who you associate with, but kind of the mindset of the group? Is that changing?
Yeah, quite a bit. So, I mean, like, it's, you know, the BRRRR method: buy it, rehab it, rent it, refinance it, repeat. So that seems to be, especially in the Seattle, a lot of, when the rates went up last year for just a freaking minute, like the entire market across the US just went like stop, right? And which is like, not to get into economics so much, but that should kind of like warn some people that look out for, you know, when the rates go up again, how quickly that thing like made the whole market just screech to a halt. But that said, it created ripples here in the Seattle area, because when you go from, you know, you go from a $250,000 house down and the rates go up, now with the affordability is, you know, 230 or 240, right? That's not, I mean, it hurts, right? But it's not like, holy crap, I'm going to die, right? But when you go from $1 million house and goes down to 890, just because the rates go up a half a point or a point or whatever, then, you know, because the buying power dropped that much, that's a huge hit to markets like Seattle and so forth. And that's what happened. Like, so it's like almost exactly from when the rates went up, the market dropped just enough for affordability purposes. So when that made it to a lot of house flippers start going like, how do we keep these things so that way, like, we don't lose on selling them now, right? And so here in the Seattle area, it's shifted over, and the hot topic now that we see everywhere is BRRRR, BRRRR, BRRRR. In our market, when it used to not be that way at all, it used to be flip, 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 flip. And just because people are trying to think longer term, because they might not be able to make that, you know, huge cash. Well,
I think everything is cyclical, and you got to change. It's like there's a buyer's market, there's a seller's market. They say, you know, from what I've always heard, is real estate's a 7-year cycle. It goes up, and then it either goes down or sideways, and then it cycles again. So it's a matter of audibleizing and changing with what the data is telling you. And I agree. You know, to me, that's the best thing, because, you know, if you have enough of these properties, you know, when 2009 hit and we had all these properties and people were like, oh, you guys must really be hurting. It's like, you realize you're only hurting if you sell it. If you keep it, all the people that lost their houses, they don't turn into sugar and melt. They now become renters. So now your actual rents go up. So there's more people that need to rent a property. So the price point actually goes up. So your profit margins in a down market, in theory, actually are better. And that's what people have a hard time. But if they're thinking on the flip and, you know, fix and flip model, different story, right? So let me ask you guys this. So you guys are new into this industry, right? And you know, I'm out there slugging it out with the PM world and all the stuff we do. Any eye-opening lessons that you guys have encountered yet, Grace, since you're in charge of that whole
the property management?
It's in terms of property management?
Yeah.
Self-manage. There has been several lessons. I think the biggest one, especially coming from W-2 job and becoming investor and working for your own business, is really, what is your time worth? If you're doing yourself, you know, my time is worth of doing more effective things. So it's like a big eye-opening, whether, you know, in any business. But like another thing that I implemented is smart log boxes, so self-showings that has been very effective. It might eliminate me from some potential applicants that they are not equipped, not as techy, but like I still calculated by having Rently log boxes and let my, you know, potential applicants in. It turned down to like 2 weeks and my property is rented.
Well, I think what you learn is, you know, number one, which is so smart, is you're putting a value on your time. And I think a lot of people, they don't value their time. They would rather run back and forth to the house. And to me, if you have a tenant that doesn't know how to use a smart lockbox, I don't know if that's a tenant. If they can't follow those directions, that alone, is that someone that you really want to deal with? Because I'm sure you guys are tech savvy, you know, especially in Seattle, right? So you're going, we're not going to the moon here. I just need you to use an electronic lockbox. So the fact that you are protecting your time, and as entrepreneurs, I think we're all guilty that's the one thing that we give up first, right? I'll do it myself. I'll go figure it out. I'll handle it. And the reality is you only have 24 hours in a day. So you have a limited amount of time. And so that's good. But I want to know of any disaster stories.
So we actually, to be honest with you, like, we're kind of spoiled in that because we follow the BRRRR method pretty hardcore. So where we have all of our rentals are completely fixed up. And so you're talking pretty much every rental we have has new electrical, new plumbing, new roofs, new windows, new tile, new granite, new appliances, everything, right? And so
you guys must know a good project manager, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, yeah, we hired him.
Because we buy homes that hasn't seen a touch of any rehab in 50 some years. So like,
Well, I mean, like,
and
the
we
house,
put all of it in,
the house looks like it's going to fall over when we buy it, and that scares away a lot of. And that's actually a trick out there for those people who fix and flip. Our best thing that came out of fix and flipping, besides like being able to wave money whenever we flip a house, but it's also because we learned how to handle construction really, really, really well and not be scared away of like nasty, massively moldy houses and stuff. Whereas most landlords would shy away from that because they want to put 20% down, do some minor cosmetic stuff, and then rent it out, right? And for us, we see a house that might be good for a flipper, but we might be able to bid them out because we have better construction rehab processes. And then a landlord's nowhere near the house because they don't want to do a $100,000 remodel on a rental and stuff. So for us, we got really lucky in that part. But the things that we like as far as disasters, I wish
there was one.
Well, we had our stories are more like we would forget to do stuff for the rental because we were so used to flipping, right? Such as like cable internet. That crap sometimes would be all over the house and outside and everything. And when we'd flip a house, we'd say, screw it, cut that crap out. It looks ugly. And because it'd be on the exterior. And then we go to rent it, and we ripped out all the concrete or something like that because we didn't even like think about it, or
mailboxes initially was missing, or like dry vents. Like I had washer dry coming in, and I forgot to install the dry vent.
So it's not like I wish it was a horrible story, but
don't worry, you'll have them. But I think what ends up happening.
Please,
one time when the tenant left me with a bunch of fleas in a carpet area, and it was like after living in a duplex for a year, and then about 3 weeks later, I guess they hatched, initially because you have 20 days to return their security deposit, blah blah, everything fine, and then all of a sudden I see lots of things jumping on my legs. So that was a disaster for me because I'm pretty new landlord at that time. So that was very terrifying. I called in services, pest control to come in to evaluate, do some work because I had a new person moving in 3 days. So that was.
Grace bought a full-on hazmat suit for herself and walked in there and tried to like for herself. And then she couldn't sleep at night. She thinking that she had fleas on her and stuff.
As bad as it was, but like what I learned, because I had to act because even pest control were not able to get rid of them like fast enough, or like there's different one on a slow motion, or like a flea bombs didn't work until I discovered borax, like the mule borax powder that you put in a carpet. So those of you that are listening, that's the one effective way that got rid of it very well.
Well, I think what you guys will learn is, as you grow the portfolio and you go through the iterations and the cycles of the tenants, is like a lot of the things that you're doing are more of the tactical side. You guys are doing a lot of right things on the front end. You're investing a lot of capital to fix the properties so that you have a good product, so that you can command higher rents and you can maybe command better tenants. But I think that what ends up happening is this becomes a people business, and it becomes unfortunately it becomes a problem solution business with people, because people living their lives have problems. They have challenges, they have issues. And so you guys will eventually have to make that discerning decision of running it as a business as opposed to running it on emotions over time, because you're going to get challenges. I mean, that's just part of the deal, right? That's the sandbox you're playing in. So what happens with that is with that, you get the problems of the people, the divorce, the thrown in jail for the weekend, the drinking, downsizing, and then it comes into the legal aspect. You're running a business, there's profit, there's loss, income, expenses, and then there's policies and procedures. And as you guys get bigger, my advice is you want to make sure that all of those keep scaling out correctly, and you're looking at it not as your properties, but you're basically running them for an owner. You just happen to be the owner, but the more you can run it like a business, just like you guys do on the flipping side, and you realize there are going to be these variables that pop up, because fixing the houses and doing all that, that's very tactical, and you can do those things. The human factor is what starts coming into play. The unrealistic expectations of the tenant pissed off because the vendor didn't show. Now you're into a bit of adult daycare with them.
Yeah.
So that'll come over time. But I think as long as you guys have the great, ability to know so much about the maintenance world, and Grace, when you're dedicated to this, and you're such a smart person, I think you guys are going to figure it out. But it's one of the things that becomes a learning curve when you hit a point, whether it's 10 doors, whether it's 80 doors, wherever that is. I think that's the point you guys will hit. It could be some learning curves and some learning lessons in that.
Definitely. Ongoing process. Like I learned, even having very thorough lease is so important. Like even that case about the fleece, like I had that very clearly written. Even though I gave security deposit back, I was able to invoice him for all the expenditures that cost me to terminate the fleece. Of course, if I contacted them like 3 months later, hey, I should have figured out a little bit sooner if there's some issues after tenant moves out.
Sure.
So like those things are very important. Then another tenant that sometimes struggles with payments on rent, and I told them like, hey, it's clearly written again in the lease how many times you are late, that you're gonna get your 3-day notice, or you're paying late fee. Like even he calls me up sometimes, say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to make it on time. I said, hey, thank you so much for your courteous call, but like I will have to charge you for a late fee. There's no excuses, no emotions involved, like straightforward. So like keep learning. Initially is like, for the first year, I was like, hey, like a more like human factor. And then
it's like, no big deal, whatever.
No, I wasn't that way, but I was like more like deep inside. I'm like, oh, I feel so sad for them. No. But it just converted, I think, to eventually a pretty fast, you treat that as a business, because like I'm like vendetta, like I want to protect our assets. Like there's nobody to overcome that.
Well, I remember, one time I was in eviction court a couple of years ago, and I'm watching this story of this owner with a tenant, and the owner's pissed off, and he's like, I want to evict the tenant. And the judge is like, why do you want to evict him? He's like, he's always late with rent, and then he catches up, and then he's late again, and blah, blah. So the judge is listening, and he's like, so he's late multiple times, and then he catches up, and then he's late again. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, so can I see the lease agreement? So he shows him the lease. He says, okay, you have late. It shows here it's due on the 1st. It was late on the 3rd, and then late fees start. He goes, so every time the tenant's late, do you charge him late fees? He's like, well, not every time, because, I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm trying to get his guy, and, his dog dies, his brother dies, he runs over his foot, whatever the case may be. He's like, and so I get tired of it. So the judge says, so let me get this straight. You want to decide when you want to enforce that contract at your own leisure, but you always want the tenant to stick to their side. And he says, what you don't understand is this contract you sign, this lease agreement, is a bilateral contract. He says the tenant has to perform. If the tenant doesn't perform, you have to perform. You don't have the option. He goes, if you put that in the lease that you are going to charge them late fees, and then if they don't pay, you are going to start the eviction. He says, you don't have the option, because what you've done is you have actually voided the contract first. I'm dismissing the case. Good luck. And I was like, whoa. And so, and I tell people that story. It's like, look, if you put it in the lease, you better back it up and you better enforce it, because if you go to court with the judge or attorneys, those are things they're going to ask you. And then if you have multiple properties and you charge one tenant but you don't charge another, now you're discriminating. Now it's a fair housing issue. So now it's a whole, now you thought you were doing something nice and you're fed up, and now
a simple thing evolved like to be a big thing.
Exactly. And that's, and that's the thing. Just by you, like you said, Grace, just like you sticking to your guns and doing what you do, you're kind of going, hey, this is the business. Sorry. This is what we do. If you can't pay, I understand. This is the next step in the process. So I would just say that as you're doing this, don't deviate. Just
consistency, I feel like. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like one property we have rented right now, and then I put as our standard 12-month lease, as a disclosed as our, one of our requirements is 12-month lease. And then my discovery was actually one of the agents who work for insurance company claims. So people, when they get displaced from their homes for some reasons, they need to find housing for short term. which I thought it was very awesome idea. Some houses when we have, if we need to create like a short-term lease, that would be very good. However, I already had that property listed for like over a week stating 12-month lease. I got an offer saying, hey, can we rent for 3 months for my clients, the ones that displaced for all of their family? We're gonna pay you $500 more. So one thing to landlords listening out there, that would be really big discrimination. You disclose your full requirements, 12-month lease. You don't back out, because some people might be even submitting applications and you saying, oh, you know, I all of a sudden changed my mind. That doesn't apply that way.
Yeah. Look, you don't get in trouble for what you do right. You get in trouble for what you do wrong. And that's the challenge in this industry is if someone feels that you slighted them and they feel that you did something wrong, nowadays tenants have a lot of rights that all they have to do is type in Google, and so you want to make sure that you're consistent. Like you said, that's the key, is don't deviate. Every time we have ever done someone a favor and deviated from our procedures, it never works out. So we're like, you know what? There's a reason that we've created these procedures. We sometimes are the own worst violators of those procedures because we're like, well, maybe this. Now we don't do that. It's like, you know what? This is how we run it. We're doing this to protect us. We're doing this to, we have our clients, the owner. We're doing it to protect the owner, but we're also doing it to protect the tenant. And I tell people, we manage almost 1,000 properties, and it's like we're married to two people. We have the tenant and we have the owner, and we have a business relationship with both. And the only thing we can do is run it down the line of what the law says. And so that's to protect us. It's to protect the owner. It's to protect the tenant. And I think the biggest challenge a lot of newer landlords have is they don't set those expectations right in the beginning. So they don't let the tenant know, listen, this is what you can expect of me. This is what we can expect of you. Let's make sure that there's no misunderstanding. And, we tell our tenants, like, look, this is when rent's due. This is what day it's late. This is what the late fees are. This is what will happen after we evict you. We'll send you to collections. You let them know. And we've had some tenants say, you know what? I don't think I should rent from you. I would rather that than us put someone in the property and now it's a problem. And that now becomes our problem. And now we have to deal with them because, look, I'm sure in Seattle, like in other cities, you put someone in, it's not as easy to get them out nowadays.
No. Easy to put in, very difficult to get them out. Especially, I don't know how it's in Texas there for you guys, Stephen. I was curious because here's more and more like a law changes, tenant landlord laws changing. So for instance, down south here in Tacoma, they have enforced, like for instance, have a 60-day rate increase, or if you have
if you're gonna
security deposits, it has to be allowed to be paid in a settlement incremental amounts. If they cannot pay, like in 3-4 payments, there's so many changes that came into effect February 1st.
For security deposits. But on top of that, if you want to buy a house and then you want to end the lease and remove the person and stuff like that because you want to remodel the property and stuff like that, you have to give them a 6-month notice now in order to do that. Yeah, and so
we don't have those, but a lot of the laws come from the West Coast and start kind of sliding across the country. So there's still, Texas is still a pretty landlord-friendly state. One of the challenges that we've noticed, and we've actually in my Facebook group, there were some people talking about that landlord survival group on Facebook, by the way. They were talking about this, that the judges, we don't vote for the judges in the precinct where our rentals are normally, right? So we rent and own rentals here, but we maybe live over here. Well, who lives in that precinct where the judges? The tenants. Who votes for them? The tenants. So they're turning to go, wait a second, these are my constituents. These are the people that vote for me. Maybe I need to side with tenants a little bit more. So we have seen a little bit of a shift that way, where they're kind of understanding the political makeup of that, and they're kind of siding more with tenants. It's still not let's say tenant friendly. It's still landlord centric, but in Houston at least, there's 2 JP courts. Normally one is one way and one is the other in a district. So obviously we want to go to one that is landlord friendly for the owner, not the tenant friendly one when we file an eviction or that. But the reality is I think if you're running it as a business consistently and you set the proper expectations, I don't think you're going to have as many problems as people that are just kind of all over the place. And I think that's where they get in trouble.
I agree. And actually, it's gonna be kind of cool is that at our expo that you're coming out to.
Yeah.
Our buddy and our mutual friend Enrique Jevons, he's doing a workshops called was it Tenants Gone Wild, like the eviction process, it's the whole. So he's doing a whole thing on eviction processes and stuff, and tenants gone wild with all these stories.
Yeah,
But,
Enrique's a good guy. I've had him on the show before, actually. He's a good, very, very good guy. So, all right, let's talk about your.
Let's talk about it. Actually, I want to talk about you at the Expo. So, like, we have the Pacific Northwest Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo, April 25th, 26th, 27th in the Seattle area that Steve's coming out to. So, Steve, you have a workshop that you're doing on April 25th, and then you have a main stage, which I think we have you on the 26th. I can't remember. I think we have you on the 26th. And I'll let you know later. But what are you talking about at the workshop, and what are you talking about on the main stage?
Yeah, so at the workshop, we're going to talk about why should I own properties out of state? And does it make sense for me? Does it make sense for my business model? Should I even go down that path? And, we here in Houston and in Dallas, where our offices are, I would say 50 to 60% of our clients don't live in Texas or in the US. Mm-hmm. So you got to ask yourself, what is it these other people know that they are wanting to buy in Texas, in Houston and Dallas, that people that live in Houston and Dallas aren't figuring out? And, this is my third year speaking up there at your event, which it just keeps growing and growing every year, which is awesome. But every time I'm up there, people are shocked at, the numbers of what it takes to buy a house in Houston or Dallas. They can't believe it. And, we're a full brokerage down here. We've got realtors that we've trained to work with investors. We've got all that. So they're kind of like, man, I would love to get into that world, but I don't know how. I don't know how to get on that Ferris wheel. So we're going to talk about that because, look, that's easy to do, but you have to have the right mindset. You've got to run it like a business, not run it like a landlord. And that's a big distinction. So I'm going to talk about that and kind of go through that as to why it makes sense and basically make sure that it aligns with the people's goals, because it could be a great deal, but maybe not a great deal for that person. If this person's a hands-on person that wants to be in the heat of battle of everything and they want to basically manage it from afar, I would say maybe not the best thing. Maybe you stay up there. But if you don't have the price point, you don't have the money to buy something in Seattle, it may make sense with some redirection. So that's what I'm going to talk about the first day in the workshop. And in the workshop, we're going to have a lot of hands-on conversations. I've actually got some worksheets that I'm going to bring up that we can walk through some scenarios that we can define if it does make sense or doesn't based on their own goals.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And did I hear that you're also bringing some deals to us as well?
I am. So I'm going to be bringing up one of our realtors with us, and we're going to have deals, real deals that we have actually currently going on in Houston and Dallas for people that if they're interested and they want to talk about it, we can crunch the numbers. And again, it's really a matter of, does it match their goals? Because a good deal, if they look at it and they go, oh, 150 grand, 180 grand, I'll buy that all day long. It's like, well, does that align with why you're buying it? And that to me is the main question of, I tell people, look, anybody can manage a property. That's easy. But to manage it to align with your goals, to help you get to where you want to go successfully, that's the talent. And that's what we bring to the table. So we're going to bring deals. I want to explain why they're good deals and see if they align with other people's goals to make it make sense. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah. And then on the main stage, when I get main staging, I will be talking about self-management versus property management. And we'll go through, I'm going to talk about it as an investor myself. And then I'm also going to talk about as a owner of a property management company, which one is better. And the answer is one is not better than the other. However, both of them are a business and both of them need to be treated as such. And so they just need to understand, in the United States, 82% of all the properties out there are managed by self-managers. 18% are by property management companies. So you got to ask, why is that, number one? And number two, the second question is why are 1 out of 3 landlords in a lawsuit every year? Most of them because they're running a business and don't realize it's a business and they don't understand all the repercussions. Just, like you guys are learning, buying a deal and fixing it up, that's important. But how do you get the return out of it for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years to get you to the goal of why you even bought the property? And a lot of people don't think that far ahead of running it like a business. So that's what I'm going to talk about on the main stage.
Cool.
Super exciting. I cannot wait to listen to that one.
So I got a question for you guys. So last year when I was there, you guys had, I think, like 700 people at this thing? It was
651 to be exact, but
I'll say 700. If it was me, I'd say 1,000. But anyways, so and then you guys did a great thing. Talk about the Travis Mills Foundation, what you did, and kind of what you guys are doing this year.
Yeah, so this year we're going to have right around 800, 850 people and so forth at the Expo. We also have 75 vendor exhibitors, and we have like almost 50 people that are on the speaking that'll be speaking either on panels or solo. And we actually have 48 topics like that are actually being like presented on. So Steve is only 2. So there's 46 other ones.
I got to bring my A game, man. I didn't realize it was this big of an event.
It's a big deal this year. Sorry, bro. But now that said, we also raise money for charity. So last year we raised $120,000 in 37 minutes for the Travis Mills Foundation, which is based out of Maine. They take severely wounded warriors and recalibrated warriors to Maine to a retreat that they own up there, and they take 8 families. Right, so of the severely wounded, every single week they take 8, pay for their flights, pay for the toiletries, pay for everything for them to be at this resort with them and do nothing but adaptive sports, be with other families that have wounded warriors and so forth, and do some healing together. Because most of the time the VA, so if you get like severely wounded in, let's say, Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere else, the VA might help with some adaptive sports stuff, but they only bring that veteran to go do that. So Travis Mills Foundation brings their entire families to go do it together. So
to heal together, to engage together, because it's a big healing process for family members to, to transform their lives to be with someone who might, have no legs, no hands.
And it's great. So we raised 120 grand last year with our goal was only 30 grand. So
and thank God for our generous community, and Stephen has highly contributed to that.
We auctioned Stephen off, so we actually have a professional auctioneer, and so he was actually not come like hang out with him in Houston for the day. And you're right, Harley. So we got him like up on stage. We poured some water on his wet T-shirt, and we just
brought my price down. I think that actually brought my value down. When you
actually, reality, we sold. Yeah, you went for $8,000 between 2 people, so which was a huge contribution.
Yeah, and that went quick. I mean, like you said, you thought it'd be like 30,000, and man, that eclipsed that very, very
within quickly. 5 minutes. We were already above that, and so this year we want to raise at least 150,000. So I figured we raise, our target's 150,000, then we'll hit 300 or something. But so you better go for 15 grand this year, or else you're not.
I better start working out some more.
That's right. You're ripped. But Travis Mills himself is coming out this year. We also have guys like Ken McElroy. I don't know if you know that name. That's out there. He's coming out. He's kind of a big deal. He actually he had 10,000 apartment units. He just sold 3,000 of them. And so he's kind of, he's living high on the hog right now. So we also have Forbes Riley. She has sold over $2.5 billion worth of products on QVC, personally on television. And she's also coming out to teach. Yep, she's coming out to teach on, she's also on the Fitness Hall of Fame. She created the Spin Gym, and she's going to be coming out to talk about how to basically pitch anything and how to find yourself and be able to build your network out and all stuff. She's really good at that. And Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets. A lot of people know who Brandon Turner is. He's coming out as a keynote as well. And we have, like I said, almost 50 other speakers. So if you go to pnwrealestateexpo.com, you'll be impressed with the speaker lineup. Steve Rosenberg.
I'm impressed, man.
Yeah. Steve's at the top. I mean, the only reason why we were able to get Brandon Turner, Ken, and Forbes is they found out that Steve Rosenberg's coming out. So they're like, "You got him? Oh my God!"
I'm in, man. I'm in. That pilot guy, I'm down.
Done. So check it out. And right now ticket sales do go up in price on this Friday. So if you don't buy your ticket now, you're going to be spending more money, which is fine with us if you spend more money, but it might not be fine with you. So check it out, pnwrealestateexpo.com.
Yeah, and I got to say, your event by far has been the best that I went to last year. It really was good. I mean, you guys, it was everything. It was the setup, the vendors. My buddies from Australia, Box Brownie, they were there. You guys just had so many different variables. It wasn't just fix and flip type people. It wasn't just all wholesalers. I mean, I remember when I raised a hand, how many people are into property management, managed properties. I was shocked at how many people raised their hand that were landlords. I thought it would be the majority. I thought I'd have crickets, and I was like, man, this is a pretty diverse group. And it was really good. I got to say, and the mixture you guys do with just everything about it was really, really professional. So yeah, if you're in the Seattle area or anywhere on the West Coast, I would definitely recommend you go. Without a doubt, it is a great event, and it's for a great thing. Travis Mills, that's amazing. We do a lot of donations to Camp Hope, which is veterans with PTSD. Every time we meet with a client, we donate a meal to feed a veteran. So every time that happens, we give them a certificate and then we give them a big check at the end. But again, it's just a matter of giving back as much as we can. And so that, I think it's the Travis Mills thing is awesome. It really is. And it was pretty heartwarming to see how quickly people donated their money. All of us donated our time to help people. And the amount of money that just flew out of people's pockets for the Travis Mills Foundation really, really was heartwarming, I got to say.
No, we loved it. It was an amazing experience, and we look forward to doing it again this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, guys. Well, if anybody wants to see this, obviously we will do a podcast show. This will be out on podcast and iTunes. Landlord Survival Show. Also, you can go to our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, where we have the ultimate landlord survival handbook. And we have a Facebook group, Landlord Survival Group, where people like Tarl and Grace and people all over the world that are investors talk about challenges. So, guys, I don't want to take up more of your time. I know you're busy. I really appreciate you guys chatting with me. I can't wait to hang out with you guys in a couple weeks. It's going to be awesome. Maybe do a couple Facebook Lives, a couple stuff like that. But I'm very excited. It's going to be an awesome event, man.
It'll be incredible.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for having us. We look forward to seeing you and meeting your staff members as well this time.
Yeah.
So, bye, everybody.
All right, guys. We'll see you until next time. Bye-bye.
This has been the Landlord Survival Show. Join us next time for more of what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. And for even more, find us on Facebook.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors. For more information about this show, visit our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, home of the ultimate landlord survival handbook.